Hello and welcome to NTD News Today. Kevin Hogan here. Let's take a look at our top stories. The United States weighing its options as Russia continues its aggressive posturing against Ukraine. What exactly does Russia want? A state law would make it illegal to request a person's vaccine status. This while dozens of school workers are fired for refusing the vaccine, and a man is denied a heart transplant for the same reason. A new voter-backed system will take effect in Alaska's elections this year and looks to bypass partisanship in a way that no other state has attempted. And a Californian city votes that gun owners must carry liability insurance. It also plans to require its thousands of legal gun owners to pay a fee. The United States is weighing its options over possible responses to Russian aggression against Ukraine. The president warning Moscow yesterday there could be severe economic consequences. NTD's Jessica Beatty has more.
With few signs of diplomatic progress, the U.S. is preparing for a potential Russian invasion of Ukraine.
We have no intention of putting American forces or NATO forces in Ukraine. But as I said, there are going to be serious economic consequences if he moves.
The United States sending military equipment to Ukraine, including ammunition and weapons. And up to 8,500 U.S. troops are on heightened alert for a possible deployment to Eastern Europe. Lawmakers on both sides supporting a free Ukraine. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell says the United States needs to take action before Russia invades.
Once the Russians have grabbed a piece of Ukraine or tried to overthrow the entire government, it's really too late.
McConnell giving the Biden administration some praise.
It appears to me the administration is moving in the right direction.
Foreign policy expert Heather Conley from the German Marshall Fund of the U.S. says the West's response has improved this week, sending a message of deterrence.
It is absolutely prudent for NATO to strengthen its collective defense along its eastern flank.
Russia has amassed an estimated 100,000 troops near Ukraine in recent weeks and is holding military drills. Moscow wants guarantees from the West that NATO will never admit Ukraine as a member or station troops in former Soviet bloc countries.
The big picture, in many ways, we are seeing the second collapse of the Soviet Union.
Ukraine says Russia is trying to destabilize the country ahead of any planned military invasion. But the Kremlin denies it's planning to attack and argues that NATO's support for Ukraine constitutes a growing threat on Russia's western flank. Conley believes this moment requires a very united transatlantic community.
Our unity will ensure Ukraine's security.
Jessica Beatty, NTD News.
The U.S. government is handing out 400 million free N95 masks to the public. The masks are going to pharmacies, stores, and community health centers across the country. The face coverings are coming out of the Strategic National Stockpile. The Biden administration hopes the distribution will help curb the pandemic. The move comes after President Biden and his team faced criticism for not doing enough to encourage mask wearing or increase testing. On top of the masks, the administration also recently made free rapid home tests available via a website as the Omicron variant surges across the country and hospitalizations hit a new record. Multi-layered masks like the N95 form a seal around the nose and mouth and are considered effective at preventing virus spread. On December 29th, there were nearly 750 million N95 masks in the Strategic National Stockpile. That's 59 times pre-pandemic levels. New York State's indoor mask mandate is back in effect just a day after a judge ruled to strike down the policy. But the changes seem to be causing confusion. We hear from New York residents and business owners about the switch.
A New York appellate judge granted a stay for the state's indoor mask mandate, meaning the rule will remain in place at least until February 1st, the date it's set to expire. The decision comes just one day after a ruling by Judge Thomas Rademacher, who said the mask mandate violated the state constitution. Governor Kathy Hochul immediately defended her mask policy.
We disagree 100% with the conclusion of the judge who, in his opinion, thought that the Department of Health did not have the authority to protect public health.
Small business owners in New York City voiced mixed opinions on dismissing the mask rule.
Well, I don't exactly understand the whole legislative part of it, but we will maintain the mask policy for people entering the space. And we will continue to ask for vaccination cards for people dining in.
I feel like in public places, it's really like it's your own choice. So don't make people feel like some type of way. If you don't want to wear it, that's good. If you want to wear it, you know. But don't put people like in the same basket.
Some New Yorkers welcome the freedom of choice.
It's a very complex situation, and I try to just be respectful of other people if they choose something different than I've chosen, because they do have a right to choose.
Others are concerned about riding public transportation without a mask requirement.
Up until now, if anyone in the subway is not wearing a mask, I would take my distance of them. If they're wearing a mask, I feel much safer.
The judge's ruling to overturn the mask mandate, followed by an appeal in quick succession, caused confusion on Tuesday. While some schools rushed to make masks optional, New York State education officials have urged administrators to stick with the mandate.
A state law was just proposed in South Carolina. It would make it illegal for certain institutions to request a person's vaccine status. This comes as a school district in San Diego fires dozens of employees for refusing to comply with the vaccine mandate, one put in place to try to create a safe environment for students and staff. South Carolina State Rep. William Chumley co-sponsored the bill that would make it illegal to ask for a person's vaccine status. He said the government has no place in making you or telling you to take the vaccination or threatening your livelihood if you don't. The bill would punish any representatives of private, public, or nonprofit entities who ask about a person's vaccination status. That includes being fined over $14,000 and/or imprisoned for up to a year. Though a South Carolina labor attorney says it would be very difficult to pass this law, he asks if law enforcement will arrest people if they ask their coworkers about their vaccination status. Chumley told media outlets that South Carolina didn't want to get in this fight and that it was brought on to them by the federal government. The proposed bill comes 2 weeks after the Supreme Court struck down Biden's vaccine mandate for private employers via OSHA. And on the opposite side of the country, the San Diego Unified School District has fired 70 employees. That's because they didn't comply with its COVID-19 vaccination mandate. The rule stated workers had until July 24th to submit proof of COVID vaccination or get an exemption. The San Diego Tribune reported that termination letters have been sent to those who didn't comply. 12 of the workers are credentialed, like teachers, principals, and counselors. 61 are non-credentialed, like bus drivers, cafeteria workers, and custodians. And in the Northeast, a Boston hospital has taken a patient off the heart transplant waiting list. That's because he refused to get the COVID-19 vaccine. The patient is DJ Ferguson. He's 31 years old, and he was waiting for a heart transplant because his heart and lungs were filled with blood and fluid. His father told CBS Boston on Monday, "My son has gone to the edge of death to stick to his guns. His heart has now deteriorated so much to the point where it won't work." The hospital is Brigham and Women's Hospital. It says that the COVID-19 vaccines are required. Gofundme says it's withholding millions of dollars raised by a trucker convoy earmarked for a protest of a COVID-19 vaccine mandate. The group is composed of truck drivers from across Canada. The truck drivers are making a long trip across Canada as the Freedom Convoy 2022. Then they'll stop at the country's capital for a large demonstration. The event comes in response to a federal vaccine mandate for truck drivers that went into effect on January 15th, despite opposition from members of the trucking industry. Organizers of the convoy have raised over $5 million and have been inundated with thousands of messages of support from people across the globe. Gofundme says it's withholding the funds due to a lack of transparency as to how the funds will be used. A spokeswoman for Gofundme told the Toronto Star the company is trying to obtain documentation from the group. The group's GoFundMe page states the money raised will go towards fuel, food, and lodging for the marchers. A Facebook post from the Freedom Convoy 2022 also denied that the funds raised had been frozen. A boat capsized off Florida, causing at least one death. 38 others are still missing. The Coast Guard said it was a suspected smuggling boat. The U.S. Coast Guard discovered the body of the drowning victim today. One known survivor said he was on the boat with 39 others. The 25-footer capsized Saturday after meeting severe weather. 3 days later, the man was found alone on the overturned hull by the crew of a merchant vessel. The Coast Guard says it was a suspected human smuggling operation. Migrants have long used the Bahamas as a stepping stone to Florida and the United States. They take advantage of breaks in the weather to make the crossing, but the boats are often dangerously overloaded and prone to capsizing, leading to thousands of deaths over the years. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi made a big announcement. In a video message posted to her Twitter account, Pelosi said she's decided to run for re-election for her seat in Congress. The California Democrat said, quote, "We have made progress, but more needs to be done." The 81-year-old did not announce whether she will run for Speaker for another term. She had promised in 2018 that this term would be her last in that position. Pelosi has represented California's 12th district for more than 30 years. She made history in 2007 when she became the first woman to serve as Speaker of the House. Alaska has chosen to embrace a unique new system in this year's election. It scraps party primaries and uses ranked choice voting in the general election. Let's take a look at how it works.
For the first time, Alaska's elections will be held under a new voter-backed system, regardless of party affiliation. The author of Election Changes explained how the system works.
First of all, it repealed Alaska's closed political primaries, where we had a Democratic and a Republican primary, and created one primary election where all the candidates appear and every voter gets that ballot. You choose your favorite, and then the top 4 finishers for each office move on to the general election. And then the general election, the election is conducted via what we call ranked choice voting.
This new system was narrowly approved by voters in 2020. The Alaskan Supreme Court upheld the reform last week, meaning it will be in place for this year's primary and general elections. Under the system, voters choose candidates without partisanship.
It's to get that moderate candidate, prevent the parties from being kind of an artificial gatekeeper to our choices, and then the hope is you get more done, right?
The system is an experiment, and Alaska is the first state to take it on. Supporters hope it will help ease partisan rivalries and encourage civility and cooperation among elected officials.
I think from our perspective, ranked choice voting as an important piece of that reform is this change that's, I think, the fastest growing reform in the country, working in both red and blue states, and I think does great things for voters.
But opponents say the reform could dilute the power of political parties or swamp minor party candidates. Other critics wonder whether the system will work as supporters intend.
Actor Jussie Smollett's attorney says a sentencing date in Smollett's case has been set for March 10th. A jury convicted the former Empire actor in December. He was convicted on 5 counts of felony disorderly conduct for his 2019 hate crime hoax. Smollett was found guilty of falsely reporting to police that he was the victim of a hate crime in January of that year. The case drew national attention and caused outrage for days until it became clear Smollett made the story up. Authorities determined he paid 2 brothers $3,500 to stage an attack on him in order to generate publicity and advance his career. Smollett's defense team said it will appeal the verdict. Legal gun owners in California's San Jose may soon have to carry liability insurance. That's after the city council voted for it. It's believed to be the first measure of its kind in the U.S. NTD's Andrew Thomas reports.
The San Jose City Council also voted to require thousands of gun owners in the city to pay a fee. The funds would be used for firearm safety education and services such as domestic violence prevention and mental health services. The proposal aims at reducing gun violence in the San Francisco Bay Area.
We can't wait for Congress. Cities are stepping up throughout the country. States are increasingly stepping up as well. We want to encourage folks to deploy approaches that will reduce gun harm in their own communities. We're going to learn from each other. We're going to take the best ideas and hopefully scale them.
Sam Paredes, Executive Director of Gun Owners of California, says his group will sue if the proposal takes effect.
There are most definitely plans to challenge this in court. California either affects or infects what happens throughout the country. In this case, we would look at this as an unconstitutional infection that we want to stop here.
The liability insurance would cover losses or damages resulting from any negligent or accidental use of the firearm. Those who don't insure their weapons would face unspecified fines.
We are concerned about victims of gun violence, but we are not to blame. This law, in essence, assigns blame to lawful gun owners.
The proposal does not address the problem of illegally obtained weapons. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
The Chinese Lunar New Year is right around the corner, and in San Francisco, the city's leaders are taking action to increase safety measures for Asian Americans. That's after a spike in crimes targeting Asians.
San Francisco's police chief William Scott told a news conference on Tuesday that he had already ordered increased officer presence in patrols in Chinatown, despite staffing shortages he blamed on the pandemic. The Lunar New Year will be celebrated in the city with a parade on February 19th.
We're having some challenges with COVID and this latest surge of COVID. A lot of our officers have been off sick, but we're going to continue to make it happen. We make the adjustments. You will see officers deployed and more officers deployed in Chinatown as well as other areas of the city. And we have to make adjustments constantly to make that happen, and we'll continue to do that.
Scott and Mayor London Breed pledged to step up policing in Asian American communities after statistics showed that 60 hate crimes were committed against Asians in the city during 2021, up from only 9 the year before.
This is an extraordinary community, and I am heartbroken, I'm frustrated, I'm embarrassed, I'm angry about the violence that has continued to impact many of the people who are part of our Asian community.
Scott said that more than 30 of the hate crimes had been linked to a single individual who was arrested last August. San Francisco is the latest major U.S. city to have a sharp upswing in hate crimes against Asian Americans in the past year. New York City police said in December that 129 such incidents had been reported in 2021, compared with 28 in 2020. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
The American Red Cross say they supply 40% of the nation's blood supply, and the Red Cross is encouraging California residents to donate. NTD's David Lamb reports.
A Red Cross chapter in California said on Tuesday morning that it will take a while for the blood supply to recover. Los Angeles County hospitals have faced depleted blood supplies amid the Omicron surge and flu season. On January 11th, the American Red Cross declared the blood crisis as the worst blood shortage in over a decade, posing a concerning risk to patient care. The Harbor UCLA Medical Center's Trauma Center had to stop accepting new patients for over 2 hours earlier this month due to insufficient blood supplies. A director with the LA County Emergency said a closure like that had never happened in the past 30 years in the county. LA County officials are urging residents to donate blood. Amid this crisis, doctors had to decide which patients receive blood transfusions and who will have to wait. Since March 2020, there has been a 10% decline in blood donations, and a 62% drop in college and high school blood drives was due to the pandemic. Reasons may include illness, weather-related closures, and staffing limitations. The American Red Cross is partnering with the NFL to encourage blood donations. For the remainder of this month, anyone who donates blood will have a chance to win 2 Super Bowl tickets in Los Angeles next month. David Lamb, NTD News, California.
Mexican drug kingpin El Chapo will stay in prison. That's after an appeals court refused to overturn his 2019 drug trafficking conviction. The defense argued that jurors tracked the case in the media. A 3-judge panel rejected 10 arguments by the defendant for a new trial, including that deplorable jail conditions undermined his defense. El Chapo's real name is Joaquin Guzman. His lawyer says he will probably seek a Supreme Court review and that the judge decided not to overturn the conviction because of Guzman's notoriety. Guzman was convicted in February 2019 of trafficking billions of dollars of drugs and conspiring to murder his enemies. It stems from his role as a leader of Mexico's Sinaloa cartel. He has been serving a life sentence at the nation's most secure federal prison. Guzman's appeal focused on a Vice News article published 1 week after the verdict, where an unnamed juror said at least 5 fellow jurors followed media coverage of the trial and lied about it to the judge. Mexican journalists on Tuesday started nationwide protests denouncing the recent murders of 3 reporters. They're demanding a stronger reaction from the federal government in response to the killing of their colleagues.
3 journalists have been killed in Mexico in the last 2 weeks. The latest, Lourdes Maldonado, shot sitting in a car over the weekend in the northern border city, Tijuana. Mexico is one of the world's most dangerous countries for journalists. Nearly 150 have been killed in the last 20 years, according to an advocacy group, Article 19. Maldonado's killing inspired a nationwide journalist-led protest on Tuesday. In Mexico City, demonstrators held a vigil and signs that read, "You can't kill the truth by killing journalists."
I'm here with a lot of grief because more than 100 journalists have been murdered in the last couple of years, no matter how many times we've protested.
In a statement, Article 19 said, "It is a matter of urgency that state and federal authorities prevent attacks, protect journalists when they are the victims, and investigate crimes committed against the press with due diligence." The country's president, Andrés Manuel López Obrador, has been criticized for not acting to protect reporters. His government said they'd work to solve Maldonado's killing in hopes of preventing more like it.
Still to come, Walmart makes a huge investment in vertical farming. The retailer plans to use the investment to supply its stores with leafy greens. Flying cars are no longer a science fiction fantasy. Aviation regulators in Slovakia have given approval to a prototype flying car. It can travel a distance of 310 miles. Find out more after this short break.
Secure, the true solution for your digital privacy and security. Secure is a private and secure messaging and email solution hosted in Switzerland, using military-grade encryption and Swiss privacy laws, giving you true privacy. Secure is 100% private and does not collect or sell any of your personal data. Secure's Helix technology connects you securely to our Swiss servers without the need of a VPN, guaranteeing privacy and security for all your communications. Secure Messenger doesn't require your phone number or any personal data that hackers target. Chat by Invites allows you to chat privately and securely with anyone outside of your secure network without the need for others to download Secure. Secure Send offers you a private and secure way to email anyone outside of Secure. You won't find this level of privacy or security on any other email or instant messaging application. Visit secure.com. Regain and protect your privacy today.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell, CEO of MyPillow. Cancel culture has not only affected myself and MyPillow, but also millions of you out there. My employees and I want to personally thank each and every one of you for all your support. At MyPillow, we have hundreds of products now, including my new slippers, bathrobes, sleepwear, and my new beds. We are offering the best products ever for the best prices ever. For example, we have the standard size MyPillows, regularly $69.98, now only $19.98 with your promo code. Or you can get custom fit with my premium queen size MyPillows, regularly $79.98, now just $29.98. Or my king size, regularly $89.98, now just $34.98. So go to mypillow.com now and use the promo code on your screen or call the 1-800 number below to receive these exclusive offers. Thank you and God bless.
Retail giant Walmart says it's investing in an indoor vertical farm startup. The deal is part of a $400 million round of funding, and the company says the plan will help produce leafy greens for its stores in California. The investment in South San Francisco startup Plenty is one of the biggest in the indoor farming business. The distribution deal from Walmart is a sign of mass market appeal from an industry that hasn't delivered on early expectations. That's as high costs have posed a major challenge. Walmart says the deal is subject to regulatory approval and hasn't said exactly how much money will be invested, but it hinted it was a big deal. Plenty CEO told Reuters the company has been able to increase yield in its growing rooms for leafy greens by 700% in 2 years. He said raising yields was key to profit. The Walmart executive in charge of buying produce says Plenty's capabilities in growing strawberries and cherry tomatoes at scale was also another advantage in the deal. General Motors announced plans on Tuesday to spend nearly $7 billion to convert a factory that'll make electric pickup trucks and to build a new battery cell plant. It's the company's largest investment ever in its home state of Michigan. The move intensifies a battle with rival Ford Motor Company for EV supremacy in North America.
GM announced the move on Tuesday in Michigan's capital of Lansing. The automaker plans to spend up to $4 billion converting and expanding its Orion Township assembly factory to make electric pickups. And it plans to spend another $1.5 to $2.5 billion to build a third U.S. battery cell plant with a joint venture partner in Lansing. It'll create up to 4,000 jobs and keep another 1,000 already in place at an underutilized assembly plant north of Detroit. Michigan's Economic Development Board on Tuesday approved $824 million in incentives and assistance for Detroit-based GM. The announcement is a critical win for Michigan. The state recently set aside $1 billion to land major business projects, and a large portion of that will go to the GM facilities. Last year, Michigan lost out on Ford Motor Company's $11 billion investment in 3 battery plants and a new vehicle assembly plant that went to Kentucky and Tennessee. GM and Ford are both vying for a larger share of the North American EV market. Both automakers, however, will have to contend with current leader Tesla. Tesla will soon open a second U.S. plant in Austin, Texas, and is on pace to sell more than 1 million electric vehicles globally in 2022. GM said its new plant will enable the company to build more than 600,000 electric trucks a year by late 2024. That, combined with 3 other plants, will bring the company's total North American EV production capacity to more than 1 million units by late 2025. GM also plans on building a 4th battery cell plant in the U.S., but the location for that project hasn't been announced. Ford said it will also have the annual capacity to build 600,000 electric vehicles within 24 months. It's aiming to become the clear number 2 electric vehicle maker in North America, behind Tesla.
Getting in your car and flying to your holiday destination could be a reality within years. Slovakia's Transport Authority has approved a prototype of flying cars in line with standards by the European Aviation Safety Agency. Let's take a look.
Klein Vision is a Slovakian company that developed a prototype flying car called AirCar. They recently received an airworthiness certificate by the Slovak Transport Authority, meaning they are cleared for takeoff.
With this certificate, which has been achieved after 70 plus flight hours and 200 takeoffs and landings, we have confirmed that the technology is built in compliance with all the safety regulations imposed by EASA.
The current prototype can travel 310 miles and it requires 7.4 gallons of fuel. The co-founder of Klein Vision says they were inspired to create AirCar to deal with the problem of traffic jams.
Cars used to be a symbol of freedom. And if you have a driver's license and you drive your car, you certainly know you lost that freedom because you are often stuck in traffic. Our goal is to return the freedom back to those who have the pilot's license and can drive a car, and at the same time they can take off.
The flying car is expected to cost $600,000 to $700,000. The company is already working on its next prototype, which will have to go through new airworthiness tests. It will have a range of 620 miles and fly 180 miles per hour.
An iconic car featured in the Oscar-winning movie Rain Man is going up for auction. Rain Man stars Tom Cruise and Dustin Hoffman. It became the highest-grossing film of 1988. The 1949 Buick Roadmaster convertible was prominently featured in the film. Hoffman acquired it when the film wrapped. It has rarely been seen in public in the last 34 years and was last shown at a 1989 Buick Car Club event. It remained in Hoffman's ownership over the years. He now says it's been in storage for too long and that it should, quote, be driven, enjoyed, and cherished. Rain Man received 8 nominations at the 61st Academy Awards. As of 2021, the movie was the first and only film to win both the Berlin National Film Festival's Golden Bear and the Academy Award for Best Picture. The Lunar New Year holiday is approaching, and that, on top of ongoing pandemic lockdowns, could spell delays for Chinese suppliers. Next, we look at what that means for U.S. companies back home and how they plan to manage. Stay tuned to find out more. The U.S. is trying to retrieve a fighter jet that crashed into the South China Sea. The operation could put it at odds with the Chinese Communist regime's disputed territorial claims. A U.S. F-35 jet went down while trying to land on an aircraft carrier Monday. It damaged the vessel, then slipped into the sea. The pilot and 6 sailors were injured. Experts are concerned the Chinese regime could attempt to extract national security secrets from the aircraft if it finds the plane first. Or the regime could claim the jet crashed within its territory and refuse to release it. A U.S. salvage operation could take months. The U.S. military was present in the area to block Beijing's aggression and attempts to take over the disputed waters. The regime has already built up artificial islands with military capacity in the region. $1 million in 6 months. That's what Huawei paid a veteran lobbyist for his service, and he's one of a half-dozen lobbyists on Huawei's list trying to influence the White House. NTD's Tiffany Meyer has more on the story.
A lobbyist for Chinese tech giant Huawei reportedly took home a significant paycheck over the past half year, totaling $1 million. Federal disclosures reveal Tony Podesta took home the payment for his work in lobbying the White House. The company paid Podesta $500,000 in just the fourth quarter last year. According to a disclosure form, the lobbying targeted the executive office of the president and centered around telecommunication services and impacted trade issues. Huawei was put under U.S. trade sanctions under the Trump administration. A disclosure form filed last week shows Podesta was compensated $1 million in total over a 6-month period for his work. Huawei has faced international scrutiny in recent years. The U.S. has flagged the company as a national security threat, referring to its close ties with the Chinese Communist regime. That's on top of its role as a suspected espionage tool for Beijing. A stream of U.S. sanctions since 2019 have barred Huawei from using U.S. technology and have blocked its equipment from being used in critical U.S. infrastructure. All in all, the penalties have slashed the company's annual revenue by 1/3. What's more, the Biden administration further tightened those measures at the end of last year, restricting Huawei from receiving new equipment licenses from U.S. regulators. To help recover from those impacts, Huawei seems to have ramped up its U.S. influence operations. According to disclosure filings, Podesta is one of a half-dozen lobbyists the company hired since July 2021. Filings show Huawei spent over $3.5 million on U.S. lobbying efforts last year, nearly 8 times as much as the year before. The Australian Open is walking back its ban on T-shirts that show support for Chinese tennis star Peng Shuai. The reversal follows backlash from politicians and athletes. Last Friday, a group of fans arrived at a match wearing matching T-shirts, all bearing the words, "Where is Peng Shuai?" They later held up a banner with the same phrase. Peng Shuai disappeared from public view for months after accusing a top Chinese Communist Party official of sexual assault on social media. Authorities soon approached the group of tennis fans, confiscating the banner and instructing them to change out of the T-shirts. They explained the Australian Open's organizers don't allow political slogans at the tournament.
The Australian Open does have a rule that there can't be any political slogans. And I'm not saying you can't have those views, but I am saying that Tennis Australia sets the rules here.
But the decision was met with swift backlash. Tennis legend Martina Navratilova called the decision to silence the fans pathetic.
I find it really, really cowardly. This is not a political statement. This is a human rights statement.
Former world #1 in tennis doubles Nicolas Mahut wrote on Twitter that the move shows a lack of courage. Australia's defence minister also chimed in.
I think it's deeply concerning, and I think we should be speaking up about these issues.
On Tuesday, organizer for the Australian Open, Tennis Australia reversed the ban. Its chief executive, Craig Tilley, told the Associated Press that it is okay for people to wear the Peng Shuai shirts, as long as they don't gather in large groups or cause problems. Worth noting, one of the Australian Open's main sponsors is a Chinese liquor company. Organizers said the 2018 deal was the largest agreement with a Chinese company in the history of the tournament, valued at around $100 million.
From Intel to the plastic toy company Connex, firms are looking to reshore production back to the U.S. Intel recently announced its plan to build the largest silicon manufacturing location near Columbus, Ohio. It's a $20 billion investment. You see, the reshoring concept has gained traction throughout the pandemic. Rising costs, shipping delays, and supply chain issues have contributed to this. So I spoke with Jake Phipps, the CEO of a manufacturing firm. He tells us more about the reliance the U.S. manufacturing industry has on China and what products are less available due to shutdowns in Asia, including pandemic lockdowns and holiday breaks in China.
You know, the Asian Lunar New Year, which is setting in right now, you have a lot of factories that are closed down for the next 2 weeks to a month, you know, throughout, you know, Vietnam, China, and the Asian markets just in general. It's causing, you know, quite a, you know, it's going to be a slowdown, you know, with the furniture industry as, you know, where it is today with people waiting, you know, 6 to 9 months to receive product. You know, we are, you know, it's, you know, between that and the West Coast ports backups that are still going on, you know, we're looking at a, you know, quite a delay.
So what are the major products? I mean, we talked about the furniture industry. What others?
I manufacture everything for mostly real estate developers in the U.S. So building materials, interior finishes, you know, tiles, wood flooring, you know, shower glass, sinks, faucet, plumbing fixtures. These are the main products that I import into the U.S. for the, you know, mostly project-based business here on the real estate side. And the developers are really feeling it because their carrying cost kills them when they can't get products on time to finish a construction project.
And is that primarily coming from China?
I would say 20%, 30% of my business, somewhere in that range now, is China, but it's across the board. You know, I import from 18 different countries around the world. Vietnam being a very big hub now for manufacturing, also Turkey, and then bringing a good amount of product from Spain, Portugal, Belarus, Eastern Europe. I've diversified over the past, you know, 3 years, considering tariffs and also just supply chain issues with China and China competence.
So small textile companies all the way up to giants like GM are looking to see if it's viable to reshore some of their manufacturing back to the U.S. Do you think some of the lockdowns that have been occurring in China are going to cause the U.S. to try to revive some of its factories?
The U.S. factory production and increasing production here is reliable on Chinese imports of the raw materials. That's the biggest problem. Parts, components, you know, to actually produce a product and get a finished product, you know, off the production line. It relies on certain parts and components from Asia.
Do you know of any solutions that can be applied to streamline the supply chain?
I believe that, you know, looking after and going after maybe European manufacturing, you know, for certain parts and components in the industry. And then if we can just bring back more machines and equipment to produce our own products, you know, here domestically would really change the industry as a whole. But that's really far in the future. We're way behind on being fully integrated anymore. We used to be the manufacturing hub going back 20 years ago, but we outsourced everything to China, and China's the leader at this point.
Phipps also has some advice for consumers. He says to stay patient and not rely on delivery schedules because there are many delays. He says he's hoping things will pick up and return to normal in the next 6 to 9 months. Just ahead, French fashion house Chanel has flown in the face of convention by sending a horse down the catwalk. The brand's haute couture show has just ended in Paris. And The Blue Boy by British painter Thomas Gainsborough will be on display in London for the first time in 100 years. All that and more here on NTD News.
You worked hard for your money. You invest in stability for your retirement and your family's future, to build and leave them with something greater. The next unprecedented financial crisis, political misstep, or unstable government can depreciate it all away. It was called the gold standard for a reason, the financial preservation of tomorrow. Diversify your assets against inflation, market volatility, and the unknown with real money. Hedge your wealth with the purest form of money, physical gold and silver. Because any currency printed on paper can be manipulated. What's backing up your IRA? Do what you need to do right now to be prepared with the Reagan Gold Group. Visit now, rggusakit.com, or call us at 866-912-1384. Receive up to $2,500 in free silver coins and a free safe with your new precious metals IRA. Call now.
Someone has to find the way to build the Great Dome. Completely new, completely original.
The 2022 NTD 8th International Chinese Vocal Competition will be held at the Merkin Hall of Kaufman Music Center in New York City. The competition is honored to have specially invited vocalists with the world-renowned Shen Yun Performing Arts to serve on its panel of judges. The gold award is $10,000. The 2022 8th International Chinese Vocal Competition. For more information, please visit vocal.ntdtv.com.
UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson told lawmakers today he won't resign over the Downing Street lockdown party scandal. That's in response to a question from the opposition party's leader.
The Ministerial Code says that ministers who knowingly mislead Parliament will be expected to offer their resignation. Does the Prime Minister believe that applies to him?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I can't comment, and which he, as a lawyer, Mr. Speaker, will know that I can't comment on.
So, since he acknowledges the Ministerial Code applies to him, will he now resign?
No, Mr. Speaker.
An investigation is putting pressure on the UK's leader. It's looking into the parties held at the official residence of the Prime Minister during the pandemic lockdowns. A report on those gatherings is expected to be released this week. It's just 2 more weeks before the start of this year's Berlin Film Festival, and workers at a Berlin foundry are busy getting the event's prestigious Bear Awards ready. This Golden Bear and this Silver Bear will be handed out at the festival's awards ceremony on February 16th. The fine art foundry Herman Noack has produced the bronze cast for the bear statue since 1951. The Berlin Film Festival, also known as Berlinale, will open in person on February 10th and end February 20th. It's the 72nd edition this year, and 18 movies will compete. The event was entirely online last year due to the pandemic. This year, some pandemic restrictions are in place, including half capacity for the live screenings. French fashion house Chanel has just finished its haute couture show in Paris. This time, the stunner was not a model in the traditional sense. The show started with a horse hitting the runway. Riding the horse was Charlotte Kisaragi, niece of Prince Albert of Monaco. She is a competitive jumper and Chanel brand ambassador. Wearing a Chanel jacket made of black tweed, she rode a few laps around a catwalk that resembled a horse training ring. The rest of the models, this time on foot, then took to the runway. The idea for the show came from Chanel's creative director, Virginie Viard, as a tribute to the brand's founder, Coco Chanel. Her design style combines both the casual elegance of Coco and the flamboyant fun of Karl Lagerfeld, an icon of Chanel haute couture in the 1980s. London welcomes one of the world's most iconic old master paintings for a limited run at the National Gallery. The Blue Boy, by British painter Gainsborough, left the gallery a century ago, leaving behind a saddened British public. NTD's Neil Woodrow attends the opening in London.
The Blue Boy by Thomas Gainsborough returns to the National Gallery 100 years since it was sold to American railway magnate Henry E. Huntington. It's set, among other work by Gainsborough, and paintings by Sir Anthony van Dyck, whom Gainsborough admired and emulated. The painting had become world famous by 1921 and sold for a record sum. It was in January the following year that it began its journey to the United States, leaving behind a saddened British public. At the time, shortly after the First World War, reviewers made the analogy between the grief over lost youth on the Western Front, followed by yet another loss, that of the Blue Boy. The painting found its home at the Huntington Library, Art Museum and Botanical Gardens in California and has never been sent out on loan since, until now. Christina Nielsen, director of the Art Museum at Huntington, says it's unlikely to happen again.
This is the only time we've considered lending it seriously. We've just finished a 2-year conservation project. We know that the painting is in great condition and visually looks spectacular. So 100 years to the day, we have him back on view for the public in the UK, and we're thrilled to be doing so.
Nielsen says the Blue Boy has become one of the most beloved Old Master paintings in America.
We receive about 1 million visitors a year, and virtually everyone who comes to the Huntington makes a beeline to see the Blue Boy.
This full-length portrait was created during Gainsborough's time in Bath between 1759 to 74, a period when the artist's style and practice changed dramatically. Christine Riding, the curator of the exhibition, talks about this influential time of Gainsborough's life.
And there's this great moment when the likes of Van Dyck were kind of revealed to him through private collections, and that absolutely is the case in a very famous group painting. Enormous work of art by Van Dyck at Wilton House does seem to have been a real lightning rod for so many artists of the period.
Riding says Van Dyck could represent the human form and give it an innate sense of authority of power.
Exactly the same thing happens in the Blue Boy. It's pared right down to the figure with this idyllic landscape in the background. Who knows where that is? And suddenly you're really focusing on this figure, and you're focusing on the pose, the expression, such as you do have with Van Dyck, but equally you're looking at the brushworks. So it's a performance both in terms of the figure, but it's a performance in terms of the artistry, in terms of the paintiness of it.
The identity of the Blue Boy was never known, which Riding says has allowed the painting itself to wander through the centuries and be of inspiration to subsequent artists. You have until May 15th to come and admire the original and much copied work. Neil Woodrow, NTD News, London.
Scientists now believe Saturn's innermost moon may be hiding something: water. The moon, which is named Mimas, was thought to be solid ice. NASA researchers have taken a closer look at oscillation in its rotation. They now think there may be an ocean buried under the moon's icy surface. That would bring it into good company with other moons containing underground oceans, including 2 of Saturn's other 82 moons and 1 of Jupiter's. Even though Mimas's ocean is encased in ice, scientists say it still might support life. Because of the large 80-mile-wide crater on its frozen surface, Mimas is best known for its resemblance to the Death Star in the Star Wars movies. An award-winning movie is bringing audiences to tears across the country. It captures the story of a jaded American reporter and a team of innocent students as they risk everything to expose the Chinese Communist Party's deadly propaganda. NTD's Juliet Song has more on the big screen release.
More than 10,000 Falun Gong practitioners protested peacefully in Beijing, China.
The movie is based on true events. It follows the story of Wang, a student at a top university in China. Wang practices Falun Gong, a spiritual meditation discipline that teaches the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. But overnight, Wang finds himself an enemy of the state. That's after Beijing launched a national suppression campaign against the practice. As Beijing ramps up the persecution campaign and turns out propaganda to defame Falun Gong practitioners, Wang meets Daniel, an American reporter struggling to find meaning in his profession. Together, they're faced with a choice: to tell the truth, risking their careers or even lives, or stay silent.
The government is conducting one of the largest scale propaganda campaigns in history. You just want to ignore it.
What are you going to do? Walk into the prison and demand to see him?
Without China, expose their lies to the world.
In Delaware, State Senator Dave Lawson gave his take on the film.
Shocked, amazed, certainly felt that I was way behind in what was going on.
When this started in 1999 and now 23 years later, this is now just coming out. I'm embarrassed I didn't know more.
In Los Angeles, one moviegoer says she had to hold back tears.
All these people that are being persecuted and are victims in China and anywhere else under a totalitarian regime, we just want to let them know that we are going to be praying for them.
Another audience member says even though the movie made him sad about rights abuses happening in China,
I think it was also the mission of the film is to make you feel somewhat hopeful that there is redemption, that at the end of the day there is some hope if we fight for what's right.
He says he hopes more people can build their courage and stand up for what's right.
I really hope that they find it in themselves, like that character who's willing to sacrifice his family, his child, his wife, in order to stand up for what's right. That's a very difficult choice to make. It's much more comfortable to stay where you are and to be silent and to continue to do what you do and just go along with the story. But to find it in yourself, to stand up and do what's right, we all have to do that.
Adding that if people are willing to speak out, they can make a change. The movie is premiering in 30 cities from the East to West Coast. That includes New York, Washington, D.C., and California. Juliet Song, NTD News.
Thanks for watching. At NTD, we're honored to be your source for the news. Catch us again tonight at 6:30 Eastern. In New York City, I'm Kevin Hogan.
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Did you know YouTube only keeps selected videos on its platform? So if you want to make sure you get the full picture, just subscribe to our newsletter. Go to newsletter.ntd.com and sign up. It's free.